You're watching Going Viral on the 18th of September, 2024. And we're starting out with Ken Aaron in LA and Alexander Stavropoulos in New York City. And here we go, folks. Alex, you want me to start with the 𝗣𝗿𝗁𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗃?
𝗣𝗁𝗏𝗃, yeah, Judge Napolitano.
Okay,
but
so here we go.
Yeah, Judge Napolitano. He's a very big libertarian. So obviously, his speech is quite important. And again, he's a erudite legal scholar, so he knows,
Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. 𝗣𝗁𝗏𝗃 joins us now. Aaron, thank you very much, my friend. Much to talk about: Israel, Ukraine, the freedom of speech, Hillary Clinton, Gavin Newsom, etc. Let's start out with the hot news in Israel. What is the latest on these explosive devices?
Okay, so you're going to skip.
The Times of India just reported a third round. I didn't see where, but somewhere today, and that they were what?
So let's just see where they start talking about Hillary. Yeah, we'll talk about. We'll use another clip for the.
I know you watch the show, but let me play for you something you may or may not have seen. This is earlier today. California Governor Gavin Newsom boasting about 3 pieces of legislation he signed, and in the clip you'll actually see him signing them. Which, if somebody uses AI to mock you and it displays you in a false light, in your opinion, you can get a judge to enjoin the display, meaning the state of California will evaluate the content of free speech. Cut number 18.
There are a lot of deepfakes out there. There's not a lot of disclosure. There's not a lot of labeling. So among the many AI bills that are on the desk are 3 specific election-related bills.
And then do you want to sign some laws?
I just thought, why waste your time with a politician unless they're going to do something for you? There's 2.
2 are signed, and 3 are signed.
And this is now official. That is now injunctive relief if you do any of those deepfake election misrepresentations. So that's how easy it is to govern in California.
An AI generator, there are many of them out there, of Kamala Harris. She looks ridiculous. It's hilarious to watch. It's obviously not truly her. But what about the First Amendment? And we haven't even gotten to Hillary Clinton yet, that the government would allow the courts, instruct the courts to evaluate who said this, where did you get it from, is it true, should I prevent you from displaying it? The Supreme Court jurisprudence as of this moment in our history is that you can say anything you want in political speech, even if you know it is untrue.
I'm not a big fan of AI, and I'm not against efforts to regulate it because I do see some dangers in it. But obviously, we don't want to support the government being able to designate, what is permissible speech and what isn't. I mean, the standard that applies if you incite violence, that's not free speech. But anything short of that, I don't think the government should be involved in adjudicating that. But I got to say, everything I've seen about AI, so I see a lot of reasons to be concerned. So I'm not opposed to some form of regulation for it.
Here's something that I know you will oppose. The Yale Law School graduate, former U.S. Senator, former Secretary of State, former Democratic candidate for president, and her views on the First Amendment. Cut number 17.
I think it's important to indict the Russians, just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda, and whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because the Russians are unlikely, except in a very few cases, to ever stand trial in the United States.
Somebody's got to be tried, and if the Russians can't be tried, they might as well try Americans who are expressing political opinions that the FBI and Mrs. Clinton think constitute propaganda. This is just off the wall for somebody with a basic education, much less a graduate of a top flight law school.
Before I get to how outrageous her proposal is for criminalizing free speech, let me just point out one really hilarious aspect of this. She cites, to make her case for criminalizing free speech, Mueller's indictment of Russians for their supposed interference in the election. And then she says, unlike Americans, like the Russians will never stand trial. Actually, when Mueller indicted all those employees of that Russian social media company that put out memes that had basically nothing to do with the election, they were juvenile, but people like Hillary Clinton made this into some sort of new Pearl Harbor. Okay. That company showed up in court. They hired a U.S. lawyer who showed up in court actually to fight the case. And what did the Mueller team do? They dropped the case. They dropped the case because the case was so ridiculous, indicting a bunch of Russian troll farm employees, accusing them of election interference, when the posts they put on social media barely pertained to the election. They were incredibly juvenile. Okay, so that's what happened. Mueller dropped the case that she's now citing as precedent and claims that the Russians will always evade justice, but we can go after Americans. So that's
she not only flunked constitutional law, she's a lousy litigator.
To litigate. And of course, the irony of her calling for criminalizing people who put out propaganda when she is behind one of the most consequential and disastrous propaganda campaigns in U.S. history, which is Russiagate. Her campaign funded the Steele dossier, which was the basis for the allegations that Donald Trump and his campaign were engaged in a sprawling conspiracy with Russia. And the FBI relied on that Clinton-funded propaganda to make their case for leads, for surveillance warrants. That's how consequential that act of propaganda was. Her campaign also funded the firm CrowdStrike, which is the company that first accused Russia of Russiagate's foundational allegation, which is that Russia stole Democratic Party emails and gave them to WikiLeaks. CrowdStrike, as your frequent guest Ray McGovern constantly brings up, and which the U.S. media refuses to cover, CrowdStrike, the president admitted under oath, actually, you know what, we have no evidence of Russian hacking, even though we publicly accuse it. And even though this Russian hacking allegation became the basis for these Russian interference claims, which not only gave Hillary Clinton a pass for losing to Donald Trump, and not only empowered Hillary Clinton to then call for criminalizing free speech, but have led to a considerable deterioration in diplomacy between the U.S. and Russia, and I think was a major factor in why we're in a proxy war in Ukraine today. So Hillary Clinton, the sponsor of one of the worst and most malicious propaganda campaigns in U.S. history, is now calling for criminalizing people who spread propaganda. And so if her proposal was applied, she'd be the first one in prison.
Nicely put, my dear friend. This has been under my skin since I first heard it. I've known Rachel Maddow for years. She believes in the First Amendment, I think, like we do, and I wish she had jumped down Hillary's throat, although, as you know, most hosts don't jump down their guests' throats. Thank you very much for your time. Look forward to doing it again next week, Aaron. All the best.
Okay.
Okay, well,
So
Ken,
that's that.
Did you know that about your governor? That
he sits around, and I notice he doesn't wear a tie anymore. He's very casual.
Right. Well, it's a California thing, right?
He got a lot of backlash for certain stuff from Elon Musk and some other guys. He went too woke on some stuff, tampons in the men's room or something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, but that was interesting. I mean, Hillary Clinton is, she just keeps coming out. Like, I had a dog once, and we were up in Canada, and we let him out, and he found like a latrine where cows, or the cow deficit, where the cows pooped. Yeah. And he jumped in there, and he came back, and he said, look at me, look what I got.
Right.
And, we had to wash him off and everything. She just comes out in front of the TV and says, look at what I got.
Right. And she shouldn't be one to talk. I can't.
Okay. So do you want to go to another clip?
Yeah, actually I have, I didn't send this to you. I wanted to, because I forgot about this. Did you hear what happened in Brooklyn 2 days ago with the NYPD? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is a real crazy police involved shooting. where they
Okay,
shot.
well, let me pull
The
it up.
NYPD shot bystanders. Channel 7, the local ABC affiliate, Eyewitness News, and this was crazy. But here, it's just a short clip. And I think they have video of what happened, so you'll see.
Police shooting and chaos in a subway in Brooklyn yesterday afternoon. What started as a fair beating case quickly escalated into violence. A man approaching 2 New York cops with a knife, and cops started shooting at him. This at the Sutter Avenue stop. When it was over, an officer, the suspect, and 2 subway riders were hit with bullets. One of those riders was struck in the head and is in critical condition. And now a mystery. What happened to the knife the suspect had? Eyewitness News reporter Darryl Miles at 𝗣𝗿𝗁𝗁 Hospital with new developments. Darla.
Well, Bill, there are certain things with this shooting incident that are under internal review by the NYPD. The knife that you mentioned, the knife used to threaten officers in the shooting incident, well, that was stolen from the crime scene. They're looking for that suspect and trying to recover the knife. You also had 2 tasers that were deployed. Neither of them worked. You have an NYPD officer recovering here at 𝗣𝗿𝗁𝗁 Hospital from a gunshot wound from a fellow officer. And all of this, the root of all of this is a $2.90 subway fare.
He got shot too? He got shot, the cop got shot too?
The NYPD using this cell phone video to investigate the actions of their own rank and file. A portion of it shows an officer down, mistakenly struck by either a bullet or a fragment that came from his partner's gun.
The tactics are a little bit different in the subways. I have to understand it's a very condensed environment with a lot of people. So it's difficult to approach and isolate someone from that in that situation.
A 49-year-old man was shot in the head, and a 26-year-old woman was grazed in the leg, also mistakenly shot by an NYPD officer Sunday afternoon. It all started when 2 patrol officers saw the 37-year-old suspect slide through an open gate at the Sutter Avenue subway station in Brownsville without paying the fare. They pursued him up to the L platform. He ignored the commands. Investigators say the suspect was about 7 feet away with the knife in hand when each officer tried to tase him, but neither taser was working. They say he continued to advance with the knife, and that is when they started shooting.
They use their electric stun device we call taser. That's ineffective at this point. Now it's ineffective 2 days within 2 days, both times in Brooklyn. It's been ineffective. Normally it is.
The sergeant deployed this taser. The taser was ineffective.
This is the NYPD Friday evening explaining a similar situation. A 38-year-old man was shot and killed while police were executing an arrest warrant in 3 murder investigations. They say the taser failed while he was holding a knife and they opened fire. And just a few minutes ago, I spoke with the best friend of the 49-year-old shooting victim. He is still in critical condition, and right now they're just holding on to hope, saying that his condition has not worsened. Reporting live in Brownsville, Darryl Miles, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Okay, end of that, right?
Yeah.
So my question
There have been
is,
protests over that.
yeah, of course. You know,
Again, whoever that cop is, he just,
what happened to the suspects?
he was wounded and arrested.
He was shot too?
I don't think he was seriously wounded, but but yeah, this cop, shoot. I mean, obviously he's not been properly trained if he shot his own partner, and
Well, I guess everybody there gets the and 2023 Keystone Cops of the Year award.
Yeah.
Okay, so now do you want to go to one of those other things? The Israeli terrorism?
Yeah. Again, you want us?
Let me do it.
Do 5 minutes in, Ken.
Go 5 minutes in?
You see there's like a little line break, it's
Okay, wait a second.
They broken it into segments. So yeah. Oh, and here
5
again,
minutes in.
Yeah, it's here, let me explain again the reporter there. This is the interviewer is Katie Halper, who's been with the Pacifica Network. She had a show on BAI.
This clip is an hour long. So
no. Again, we're just going to play for like about 10 minutes from the 5 minute mark. And she's talking to a Lebanese American journalist, Rania Khalek, who lives in Beirut normally, but fortunately she was in there when all this happened because she was visiting her family here in the States. I think they're in Virginia. And otherwise, well, we'll see. Otherwise, she could have been one of the victims because basically, these pagers and walkie-talkies were basically blowing up all over Beirut where she lives. Well, again,
Not all over. How many were blown up?
Well, more than 3,000 people have been injured, so it's a lot of them, hundreds.
Okay.
And again, more 100 more people at least were wounded today because again they had a second round of like attacks.
I just hope they haven't put any of that explosive in people's dental implants.
Part of the problem is now, of course, again, any terrorist group has this as an idea. Oh, we can, well, basically they put a bit of like C4 explosives into each one of these pagers or walkie-talkies. Or actually, again, I heard what's really that you have an iPhone, Ken, right?
No, I don't. No.
Well, again, according to some people, laptops and iPhones were also booby trapped. At least that's the allegation.
Okay, so let's watch this.
That's just what the U.S. and Israel think, by the way. A lot of the rest of the world doesn't necessarily see Hezbollah that way, but Hezbollah is also a political party. They have been elected to government in Lebanon. They're part of the biggest political bloc in the country. Therefore, they have a political branch, meaning they have members of parliament. So several members of parliament, one of them actually, Ali Ammar, the son was killed in this attack by an exploding pager. Another one, Hassan Fadlallah, 2 of his sons were injured. One of his sons was injured so badly he's in surgery. Another one was 𝗣𝗿𝗁𝗶𝗶𝗃. He's a pretty high-level Hezbollah official in the political branch. 2 of his sons were injured. So the point is that these are political figures. These aren't necessarily, soldiers. And yes, some of these people may have been soldiers, but they were far from any battlefield. This was such a dirty way to attack people. And it was essentially an attack on civilians because you turned human beings into bombs. This injured at least 3,000 people, and something like 200 are in critical condition. And according to a recent New York Times article that I was looking through before I came on, the Israelis rigged the pagers to beep before they exploded, meaning people took them out of their pockets if they had time to look at them. So this is something that exploded in people's faces. It killed at least one child, a 10-year-old girl. And so, I mean, it's completely disgusting that something like this happened. And it's also even more disgusting the way it's been covered in the media. You see really ridiculous headlines and then really ridiculous framing that this was some sort of attack on Hezbollah. No, this was an attack on the country of Lebanon. And you can imagine the kind of coverage and framing it would receive had Hezbollah or Hamas, or let's say a country, an adversary country like Iran or China or Russia, had rigged the cell phones or whatever devices of American officials to just explode across the country while they're out running errands.
Right.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous.
Like American officials or members of the military, like anyone would be okay with that.
Or even members of Congress, because I want to remind you, these are okay. So these pagers were distributed to members of Hezbollah. Members of Hezbollah can mean a lot of things. It can also mean people who work in civil institutions in Lebanon. Right. Every major political party has institutions that they run. They run hospitals, they run clinics, they run schools. That applies to Hezbollah. So you're talking about explosive devices going off in schools, in grocery stores, in hospitals. This is completely unacceptable. And anybody who's trying to legitimize this, including the smirking, evil spokesperson of the U.S. State Department, Matt Miller, calling them legitimate targets, you're the actual terrorists. This is an act of terrorism.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Rania, because we actually have a clip of Matt Miller, and trigger warning, everyone, because he is a smirking demon, as you just described him. Well, you called him smirking. Demon is my term.
I said evil, but demon
yeah.
works.
Yeah, either way. Yeah. Here is Matt Miller of the State Department responding to the bombing of pagers that happened. So let's take a look.
Lebanon? Sure. Well, just to begin with, in general, what does the U.S. know about what happened? There have been a series of deaths and injuries, apparently from exploding pagers. Was the U.S. the U.S. have any knowledge? What does it know now, and when did it know about what has happened?
So we are gathering information on this incident. I can tell you that the U.S. was not involved in it. The U.S. was not aware of this incident in advance, and at this point, we're gathering information.
And what information have you gathered so far?
We'll continue to collect information. I don't have any public readout to give now, but we're collecting information in the same way that journalists are across the world to gather the facts about what might have happened.
Obviously, it doesn't take much guesswork who the most likely culprit would be in terms of doing this, in terms of who the enemy of Hezbollah is. Do you have any indications that to doubt that it would be Israel that was behind the...
I don't have any assessment to offer one way or other at this point.
And I know you're saying that, but in terms of what this means, I mean, there's been for a number of weeks the talk of dialing down, or at least not having a retaliation from Iran over, sort of a tit for tat, if you will. How does this play into it? Is there any message that you're sending to Israel in terms of what to do next, or to Iran, to Hezbollah, in terms of how to respond to this?
So I never want to either comment or speculate about the impact of any one incident, especially in the early stages of an incident, and I'm not going to do so here. That's been our consistent policy to try and avoid doing. I will say that our overall policy remains consistent, which is we do want to see a diplomatic resolution to the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. We want to see one that allows the tens of thousands of Israelis who've been displaced from their homes and the tens of thousands of Lebanese who have been displaced from their homes to be able to return home, and that's what we are continuing to pursue.
All right, Rania, what do you think?
So disingenuous, but also he's doing what he has to do, which is lie. I mean, he's a professional liar. Look, yesterday, 24 hours before this attack, you had the Americans telling the Israelis, warning the Israelis with their scary, scary words, not to escalate with Lebanon, because the Israelis have now added the northern front and returning their people to the northern front, or to the north, as part of one of their goals for this broader war they're conducting, or genocide they're conducting in Gaza. And so this is a slap in the face. I mean, to trigger these devices the day after the Americans warned them yet again not to escalate with Lebanon is to basically say, F you, America. And to also say we're going to escalate, Netanyahu is in this kind of tug of war with Yoav Gallant right now about how to deal with Gaza, with Lebanon. And so this could escalate into a bigger war depending on what Israel decides to do, because clearly the Americans have no ability, nor do they care to really stop it. If they wanted to stop Israel from committing genocide in Gaza, they could. If they wanted to stop Israel, and they have a couple times stopped Israel from carrying out a larger scale war in Lebanon, which the Americans are more worried about, because a genocide in Gaza can stay contained to Gaza as far as the Americans see it. But once you start to go to a bigger war in Lebanon, it might, drag in regional players that would drag in the Americans, and the Americans don't want that. So all that said, I mean, nothing the Americans say matters, because they're just not willing to materially restrict Israel in any significant way. So here we are, once again, on the precipice of potentially a larger scale war. All I can do is sit here and speculate. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, in one way, you could say that, it's suggested that these pagers that Israel exploded, they were Taiwanese made, and they were apparently held up for some period of time. The Israelis were able to intervene and obviously booby-trapped them, but that apparently happened months and months ago. So Israel's been sitting on this as an option against Hezbollah for months and months and months, which means it was pre-planned. But it also means that they chose this moment to do it. So on the one hand, you could surmise that, okay, maybe they decided to do this now because it's all they have. And they've also responded by, trying to send messages that they don't want a bigger war from this. So they don't want a big escalation after they've done this. But on the other hand, this could be a prelude to something bigger. It could be trying to bait Hezbollah into striking back, which, Hezbollah has demonstrated a lot of restraint up until now. They've only hit military targets. They've refrained from striking too deep into Israel. They've kind of played this balancing act of, making sure they hit back so they can reestablish deterrence, but not hit back so hard that it triggers an all-out war. Right. But this situation is not sustainable. Like, this has been going on since October 8th. And at this point, the Lebanon front and the Gaza front, Palestine front, are not connected anymore as far as Israel sees it. So even if there's a ceasefire in Gaza, the Israelis will continue to hit Hezbollah because they see that as a security threat. They want to return their settlers to the north, and they also don't want to do it in a way that makes them look like they've been defeated. So this is where we are. It's largely because of the Americans and the Israel. It's because of the Americans and the Israelis. And I'm not sure, how it's going to play out, but it's certainly a dangerous situation we're in. But what I do know is that the Israelis don't know how to do anything without playing dirty and without carrying large acts of terrorism.
Right. This is like undeniably.
Okay, I'm stopping that. That's enough of these ladies and their erratic. I know what it is and I don't. I looked at my astrology chart and I figured out who did it and everything. And the one thing we want to not do is we don't want to jump to conclusions.
Don't say that.
Hey, Mike.
Your wife.
Yeah, Mike. Oh, no, I already had a big argument with my wife. Mike, turn on your mic, Mike.
Yeah.
Here we go. So let's see. What does Mike say? You know that they're talking about the, we got to come up with a nickname for this. The, what are those things called? The pacer push?
Pagers.
The pager push or the pager bomb. That doesn't sound too romantic. I mean, you've got to come up with a better name than the pager.
Pagers are fine because it's an old expression. I don't know where you get these two lame brains on there, but I don't know who brought this clip in, but I can guess. And I got to tell you, Alex, I said, no, why don't you just bring in some Nazi propaganda films or some Trump MAGA advertisements, okay? This is all bullshit. First of all, as soon as she started making sure she said it was genocide, which anybody with common sense, in my opinion, or who uses common sense, knows it's not genocide. I've said before, you can call it war crimes, you can call it whatever. It's not genocide. So as soon as they start using that, we know where they're coming from, and we know.
They got a fixed idea. The conversation's over.
It's not about facts. It's not about
right.
There's no attempt at objectivity. So forget it. It's not new. It's not a news report. It's an op-ed piece. And in my opinion, the way they were talking, not a very good one. Not one I'd print in any newspaper that I had any control over whatsoever. But let's go back to what actually happened. Because I saw an email you sent, and we labeled this event as terrorism. It is not terrorism. If it is terrorism, then 3/4 of everything that was ever done in any war is terrorism by either side. This is a military operation.
Oh,
now, when the IDF, it was a covert, covert intelligence oriented, but still, I believe the military was involved in it. But even if the intelligence services do that, they come up with scenarios. They will put things into place. And if the government decides, or the higher up, whoever is in control, who has the authority to launch the operation, whenever they decide to do it, they will do it, or they will not do it at all. If this was in place for months, and they were just waiting for the moment they thought was best. Were there civilian casualties? Yes. Was it designed to get civilian casualties? Was it designed to aim for civilian casualties? Obviously not.
Well, I don't know. Okay.
Well, no. I mean, the primary purpose of it was to get Hezbollah operatives, and a lot, from what I saw, and I went to various different, from the left to the right to the middle, different sources looking at this, because I was wondering, I needed a triangulated fire thing to figure out what was going on here and what the objective was. The overwhelming majority of the casualties were working for Hezbollah. This does not mean they were combatants or high level direct operatives, but they were working for Hezbollah. The entire population, or the majority of the population of Lebanon, the civilian population, by and large, did not use these pagers. So the fact was they were working for Hezbollah. Now, if they weren't combatants, you can say, well, that wasn't in other words, they were still not combatants. But when the U.S. Army Air Force bombed factories, not the entire city, not carpet bombing, but actually precision strikes on factories during the Second World War, non-combatants were killed who were working in those factories. Sometimes they were slave labor. The point was, it minimized civilian casualties and tried to minimize, it minimized civilian casualties and minimized them to those who were actually directly involved with Hezbollah.
Okay, so I've got something to add on that. Let me add it, okay? Because I watched the video in conclusion, in accordance with what you're saying, that the reason they were able to pull off October 7th with such success was that they didn't use normal methods of communication that the IDF and I think they call it Pegasus, their software that they could spy on everybody. So they didn't do text messages. They didn't make phone calls. Maybe what they did was they relied on pagers to communicate, so that the IDF found out that all of Hezbollah had, and all of Gaza, not Gaza, Hamas used pagers. And so they took advantage of that and said, oh, so we'll get them. Like you're saying, your statement, if your statement is true, that the average citizen in Lebanon does not have a pager, but the average worker or associate of Hezbollah does have a pager, then your case in point is valid. It's it's almost like the Enigma machine. We cheated in World War II because we decoded their secret messages. That's really infringing on their right to have secret messages, you know. That's not playing fair, you know, we're cheating.
Right. Well,
So-
guys, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Is the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon a combatant?
Because
Because he had one of these pagers and he lost an eye.
Yeah, there you go.
Israel did not make sure. Also, the time that they chose to do this was basically in the middle of the day, when they knew all these people would be around other civilians.
Well, take them to court.
Well, let's use a scenario here in the U.S. Okay, let's say again you could brainwash someone, strap a bomb to them, and point him to your local supermarket to blow up there and detonate him. That's that's not too dissimilar again, because they did not attack with the script. They could have done this like in the middle of the night when these people would not be around other civilians. Again, you can see their videos of this. There are cases where again someone had put the pager on a counter, and then somebody else, because again the pagers beeped, somebody else looked or grabbed it, and some innocent person who had nothing to do with Hezbollah was killed. Again, this was done in a way to basically to terrorize people.
No, that's you're assuming someone else's intent, and Michael gave a reasonable argument.
This did not just
you're putting
not just injure the people who have the.
No, look, if it goes to court, you can be the prosecuting attorney and you could make that assumption. This is obviously intended to do the most damage to the public and terrorize the public. You can make that case, but it's not factual. It's not evidence.
Can I give a point of
information?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Alex, and I'm in the same position, and so a lot of people we know. We're not married. We don't have kids. If you do it at night, when the people are home with their wives and kids, you are definitely going to take more civilian and more innocent civilian casualties. Are their wives and kids, are those legitimate targets? rather than people who are working in the offices or in the spot in Hezbollah locations, Hezbollah controlled locations, who are working for Hezbollah. Give me a break. There would have been there would have been a lot more children killed if they did it at night. And if you don't believe that, Alex, you're talking out of your own ass and not out of reality.
Well, here, let me tell you how Lebanese are reacting again. Hezbollah has received more support because again, it's being Lebanese again. Forget what Western newspapers are saying again. In Lebanon, people believe this is an Israeli terrorist attack against not just Hezbollah, but against the whole. Since again, lots of just ordinary.
How do you know? But let me interrupt. How do you know what the Lebanese people think? Who told
it's
you?
It's all over Arab media.
Arab media is propaganda. How do you know what they think? You don't know.
Because a number of non-Hezbollah political groups in Lebanon have expressed support for Lebanon, and they've said, well, some of them, again, these are groups that are not normally supportive of Lebanon, but some, again, individual Lebanese have even said, well, this proves we need Hezbollah to defend ourselves.
Yeah, I don't buy
Israel.
This. I happen to look up the two organizations that of the clips you wanted, the Gray Zone and the Middle East GVP, I think it's called, the Middle East one. Yeah. What's the name of the Middle East something?
Middle East Eye,
the Middle East Eye and Gray Zone. The Gray Zone is ranked as extreme left. The Middle East Eye is middle to left. So, see, you can say anything you want. And public opinion is swayed by what is broadcast on the media. And the media comes up and says things like, the whole public thinks this. You agree with everybody, don't you? You can't trust what you hear in the media. You have to go by actual facts. You can't even go by polls because polls can be manipulated by how you ask the questions. You have to be, you got to be cautious about what you accept as reality. So, to say that Lebanon, there could be a lot of people in Lebanon who says, good for them. I'm glad they killed those fucking Hezbollah people. They've been destroying Lebanon for 10 years. And that could be
how did we, since we just passed the anniversary, when did a lot of Americans after 9/11 go, I see bin Laden's point, we
70%.
It was
polls
opposite reaction.
No, I've seen 70% of New Yorkers say it was an inside job. 70%.
I'm not talking about now, then. And again, I'm just
that's
saying
right.
The natural reaction of the Lebanese people is,
No. Don't talk about the natural reaction of the Lebanese
that's
people.
Normal. That's reaction.
What happens when a country is under attack by a foreigner.
Alex, you don't know the Lebanese people.
You don't know what they're
information from sources that have proven, as far as I know, if it's the sources I'm thinking of, which is the official state media, you are taking it from sources that have been known, that have proven themselves to be biased.
Right. The Gray Zone is a substitute because
the
Gray Zone is sponsored by an Arab country.
The claim is that they're sponsored by Iran, but there's zero.
Not Iran. No, not Iran.
I help fund the Gray Zone. I give them. I subscribe to their Patreon.
All right.
And
thank you very much.
I give them money. And again, they're run by donations from the people who support them, not by Americans.
Like you, Alex, right? Would you consider yourself an unbiased observer? I want to find out how close you are to being.
I don't consider you an unbiased person on this.
I didn't say I was.
I say you're obviously an Israel.
You're not answering my question. Answer the question.
Yeah, I'm not. Nobody. There's no such thing as an unbiased person. We're all biased in one way or the other.
Would you consider yourself? Would you consider yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, greater than a 5 as far as bias?
Depends what you mean by bias. Bias in what direction?
Bias, put it this way. What is your feeling about Israel's right to exist?
I don't think any country has, including the United States or Greece, has a right to exist. I don't believe any country. So it's not just Israel.
What about Russia?
No, it doesn't have a right to exist.
What about the turtles on Turtle Island? Not people, turtles. Do they have a right to exist?
No, they don't have a right for a country. That's not a good analogy, though.
They don't know, no, because you know how many when you eat turtle soup, obviously you're violating the turtle's right you have to exist. So,
That's right.
So does a Palestinian state have a right to exist?
No, again, I don't believe in any states. I'm not particular to Israel. Again, no state has. States are political constructs.
Does the Communist Party have the right to exist? Because they want to save the world.
It's not a yes or no. They don't.
Why isn't it? There's people who try to eliminate it.
If you're talking in a democratic sense, then any political party should have the right to exist. But that's again within our legal structure. Yeah, nobody should, no political party should be banned in that sense. I agree with that.
But a nation state doesn't have the right to exist.
No, again, because they're constructs. They're artificial constructs.
So is it a political party?
It's just like you guys. Well, again, I don't know about Mike, but you wouldn't do. You don't think trans people have a right to be trans, right?
Oh no, they have a right to be trans, in their space, not in my face.
See, so you don't believe in you don't believe in that they have.
No, I believe in my sovereignty to perceive what I want, not to be enforced.
So yeah, you don't believe that they should be a protected group.
Alex did not say that no group has a right to exist.
Right.
I have to say this much. He did not say that. He said no country, no nation has a right to exist.
Yeah, but except for a political ideology, does have a right to exist. Well, communism, democracy.
If you want to have a democracy, you have to allow the existence of different political perspectives and parties. Otherwise, it's not democracy. If you say, we exclude this kind of political party and this kind of political party, then you're no longer you can no longer say you're a democracy if you restrict the ability of people to
Well, one question though, in order to have a democracy, a democratic system, you have to have a nation. There is a way out on that. So how do you have democracy, let's say true democracy, without a nation? There is a way.
Well, it's not likely to happen anytime soon, but you could have a one world government. And again, like Jim, I agree with Jim on this again, that again, having seen way too many Star Trek episodes, that kind of united federation of, assuming there aren't aliens out there, of humans. I would like to see that eventually, come into being again, a cosmopolitan, worldwide, and I guess you would say a worldwide, worldwide government in that sense. Yeah.
And then,
in which case, again, there would be no nations except, a single nation for,
The one world government is the answer that I was saying was the way out.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
But do you think that human beings today, as they are today, as we've seen by their behavior, do you think that human beings are ready for that?
No, it's going to take probably a long time. We'll have to see if we serve. Well, we won't be around, but who knows if Homo sapiens will survive long enough for that to happen. But I think
how long do you think it would take?
Probably some centuries and millennia, but I think things like climate change that are going to require transnational working together, I think that will, things like that will, and things like, wanting to get rid of nuclear weapons and to, keep us from, all dying from that reason. I think that kind of thing pushes the world in that direction. But it's about, it requires a big change of consciousness. It really requires people to start, to stop thinking of themselves as, individuals first off, as their particular group, their particular religion, their particular nation, their particular ethnicity. You have to think of yourself as, a global community. You have to think of, everybody is humans and the same, and, there isn't a difference between, Christians and Muslims and in that sense, and or again, between Russians and Americans, or whoever, or again between Greeks and Chinese, etc. You need people to start thinking of themselves as part of a larger whole. So again, that's a matter of conscious. That has to be a change of consciousness about
that would also
your
require
place in the world.
an elimination of organized religion, would it not? I mean, in other words,
I know about elimination of organized, well, probably subordination of those kind of divisions. And again, just an overall sense that it's more important that we're just all human beings rather than again all these other differences, distinctions. That there's something bigger uniting all of us around the world, and also that we need to work together in order just to survive on this planet, particularly 8 or 9 billion people, which again is a lot of
Let's say a crisis happens, an environmental crisis happens that would require us to do that within the next 50 to 60 years before mankind has evolved to this kind of state of mind, shall we say, this kind of thinking, because it will take, we have to be an evolvement. It would have to be evolution, and evolution, as we know, biologically takes far longer, but even spiritually, psychologically, takes a long time. What do we do to deal with that crisis in the meantime?
Well, we have to act within our existing institutions, but also transcending them. Like again, clearly with climate change, that requires all the countries and all the peoples of the world to work together in terms, if you want to reduce emissions, if you think that's necessary, and to do things like stop using fossil fuels. Obviously, that it's going to require a lot of money to build up the green infrastructure. That's quite clear. And again, you have to, but also you have to have things like enforce. Obviously, you can't just let individuals pollute essentially, which we do already. Again, you can't just, if you're hopefully if you're a corporation in the U.S., you can't anymore just dump the sludge from your factory into the Hudson River, like as again.
But what stops you? What stops you?
Because there are regulations against that, and and
who does the regulations?
Yeah,
who does the regulations?
Well, the international community, but again, ultimately, governments would. Until we transcend again the nation state, then that's how we'd have to act through that. But again, it has to be within in order to get the whole world to go along with it, because that's what's going to be necessary. It has to be a joint international effort. It has to be fair as well. I mean, if basically if for example, you require basically the poorer countries of the world to basically do most of the, to impose most of the problems on them to deal with climate change. Well, first off, they're not, emitting most of the CO2 and the other gases. So, it's not going to, first off, it's not going to stop it. But also, again, obviously, again, other countries will just say, to hell with, Europe and China and the US,
Okay.
We're not gonna, if you don't treat us fairly, and if you don't do your part, why should we? Essentially, it's not gonna
Well,
work.
the idea is, let's put it this way before we go too far up in that tangent, because I was only using an environmental disaster as an example. But in order to achieve this kind of working together, one thing that obviously would have to be done is that all Islamic, forgetting about the Christian and Jewish stuff, but at the very least, in addition to the others, all Islamic-based countries would have to be disbanded as Islamic-based countries. In other words, Islam as a factor in the governing of any country would have to be eliminated. Now, do you think that those countries, and which include Gaza and Lebanon right now, because of Hezbollah's influence there, and Iran, obviously, do you think that those countries, that somebody, let's say like yourself or people like yourself, can compel them to give up Islam as a means of governance or as a factor in the governance of those countries and adopt a non-religious, totally unreligious based method of governing?
I would say no more than they can get,
I didn't ask for
Western
comparison.
countries to stop being Christian, or
No.
Israel to
I
stop
wasn't
being
making a
Jewish.
comparison because we can deal with whether or not Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or whatever. But right now, I'm talking about those countries. I'm not saying to the exclusion of others. I'm not saying they have to do it if everybody else keeps their religious state. But do you think even if every other country got rid of religion absolutely out of their government, including Israel, including the United States, including any other country, do you think those countries, let's say Iran, Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in Gaza, and Hezbollah is in essence at least co-running Lebanon, and Hamas is running Gaza, do you think they would give that up? I'm not asking you to, do you honestly think, rationally, that they're going to give that up?
I don't think any more than, again, evangelical Christians in this country.
Forget about comparison. I'm making a point here that doesn't involve those things.
My point again is, Mike, I don't see Islam as being, this special thing that you do.
It's not. It's no fundamentalist Islam is no different than fundamentalist Christianity.
Yeah, again, that's my point.
But I'm talking about those countries for a reason, because I want to make a point.
Well, I don't.
Let me just make the point. I'm not going to play lawyer games with you anymore. Let me just make the point. You are supporting, basically, de facto, whether you think so or not, you are supporting those countries in their fight against the Western countries who you see as just as guilty, if not more so. But by supporting them and supporting their premise, you are basically saying, yes, you have a right. By supporting those governments, you are saying, yes, you have a right to have your government with an Islamic state. And therefore, you're also, in effect, accepting a Jewish state and Christian state, etc. But you're saying you have a right to do that, when in actuality, that is contradictory to your base idea, which is the idea of nations, especially nations that are not run by religion or those type of exclusionary factors. I'm just trying to tell you that there's a contradiction there. If you were to come out and say, I don't support Israel, I don't support Hamas, I don't support Hezbollah, and I don't support Iran, they're all wrong. I think, you may not have many people, you may not have many allies, because then everybody would turn against you, but you would be, from what you've articulated, and your political standpoint, you might be, it might be more.
I don't, to the extent I support or approve of Hamas, I don't, it's not because they're Islamic or not Islamic. Because again, given my druthers, my, politically, I would support, more secular. I support them because they're resisting Israel in the U.S.
But why do they have,
regardless of what their particular religion is. That's
but why do they have more right?
Because they're Muslims or
No. But why do they have more right? Why do they deserve your support more than Israel or the U.S.?
Because they're an indigenous people fighting for their own land. Just like I would if I had been around, whatever, 1850. I mean, obviously, there wouldn't be too many people like me. I would have supported Native Americans or First Nations people in resisting Canada or the U.S. government to defend their own lands, to fight.
That's fine.
Let me ask a question. Would you defend? Okay, let me ask one question and then I'll stop. Just out of curiosity. I'll go right back to you, Mike. I just got to do this percent of commentary. Would you support the Comanches against the Apaches? Because they did fight for territory amongst them. So which one would you stick with, the Comanches or the Apaches?
Neither. I mean, I wouldn't support, but in
resisting, if you're going to go
resisting a settler colonial.
No, they were resisting. They were the colonialists.
That's a different kettle of fish. No.
Why?
There's again, I wouldn't say, support one group of Native Americans over the other. Again, I was.
So you let them fight and let them decide it themselves on the field of battle.
Yeah, but particular, don't try. Obviously, Apaches and Comanches, they killed each other, but I don't think either was basically out to exterminate.
You're so wrong.
The way the U.S. No.
Yes, you're so wrong.
They didn't have the capability to.
Of course they did.
Just kill all the. No, they wouldn't. And no, the inter First Nations or inter Native American fighting, they never.
Excuse me. Did the Aztecs try to expand their territory to cover all of Mexico or wherever the hell they could go?
Of course.
Okay. So would you say, okay, well, they don't deserve to be here because they were nasty?
They saw the other Mexicans, which again, of course, is anachronistic, but they saw, they didn't kill all. They didn't. The ones they didn't kill. When they conquered their, neighboring city-state of.
They made them slaves, or they killed them.
Which
they made them slaves, or they killed them.
What went on in Europe at the time?
Yeah, same thing. So, but you're talking about an ideal.
Again, they weren't trying to. There's a difference between with settler colonialism and other kinds of warfare.
Maybe in your mind.
No, there is. It's amongst scholars. They clearly recognize.
Well, scholars. Who cares what scholars say? Scholars just sit in an office and read books. What's the difference?
This is
10. And let me just say the thing. What you have a situation in the Middle East in which
I'll be right back. Keep talking. Everybody's on unmute.
But wait,
I'll be back in a minute. I have to just turn something off.
Maybe Darryl, did you want to chime in and unmute?
Well, wait a second.
You want me to take the pressure off?
No, just we want.
You're punching you like you ain't got no sense, and you ain't countering the attack. Listen. The more history that I learn, the more factual things that I learn, especially from non-European sources, I wouldn't back the government that supposedly is supposed to protect me. I wouldn't back them in anything.
Okay.
Nothing. Zero. And I serve. Right? This group of maniacs who are perpetrating genocide not only in Gaza, not only in the West Bank, but he's got the Ukrainians dancing on the head of a pin, begging them to save them when they have the weaponry to bring it to a boil. So if you want me to help you, Alex.
Okay.
I don't think Mike would like it.
What do you say to that, Mike?
Well, first of all, let me make the point I was trying to make, and I was civil enough to hold off on it. What you have in the Middle East, Alex, in answer to your question, I'll answer yours in a second, Darryl, but in answer to your point, what you have in the Middle East is two.
Could we call it Western Asia?
No, because
that's more correct. No, Mike. Well, Middle East is just as anachronistic. It's not.
Whatever it is.
It's a settler colonial term.
All right, hold on. Wait. Now that we're getting into semantics here, let's just say what we have in the area where Israel and the West Bank and Gaza is, okay? Just that area is two indigenous people. Two people who can claim to be indigenous. One, which is that anybody, and you can say you could do it by blood, by spirituality, or whatever. One group was there first, or put it this way, at least at the same time, which is that the Jews who were descended of the ancient Hebrews. All right, they were there, certainly as a religious or ethnic group. They could probably make a prior claim, even though we can all go back to the Neanderthals if we want to get into prior claim. But then you have Palestinians who were there either through their own attempts or because they were just handed the land by other powers, other world powers, Britain or France or whatever, and saying, okay, or whatever government was in charge there, this is your land. So basically you have, and this is the problem, and that's the point that I don't know if Ken was trying to make, but that's one point that can be made from what he was saying, is that you're supporting an indigenous people, but you're not supporting the people who were kicked out of there, just like you can claim the Palestinians were kicked out or left, or both. But there were people who were kicked out or left or both beforehand who are now back there. So the indigenous thing doesn't really wash here. This isn't a colonial settler thing, except in the view of outside powers. It just an analogy, and it's just an analogy, could be when an Israeli paratrooper told a bunch of, I was at a lecture or something back in the 70s, and he said if it wasn't for the world powers and for the corporations, he said, you know what we'd be fighting over in the Middle East is water. So the fact of the matter is, yes, there are outside influences, but if you just say, I'm going to go with the people who are indigenous, then you're excluding the people who are indigenous prior to that, if that's the case, which it is in this case. Darryl, your point about what's going on here, let me tell you one thing. I think, and this I'm going to go slightly off, maybe on a tangent, I think we're suffering from an epidemic greater than COVID, and that is an epidemic of mental illness, in that people are letting their, if I can use the old-fashioned term, their ids run their rationality. So whenever you have a situation like we have, in which people count emotionality as more viable, as a more viable and as a higher priority than, so for lack of a better term, intellectuality, using the mind, rational thought, you're going to have what we've got, basically. And we've got in the United States, we see it, because I can also say, if I could go off on another tangent here, forgive me, but what the hell is going on? I can say, what's going on with the MAGA and the Trump people? Why are they still supporting? Forget about Trump himself. He's a schmuck. Why are people still supporting him? Why are they making excuses for him? What's going on there? Is it a cult? Whatever it is, it's kind of mass, not just mass hysteria, mass insanity. Maybe not on the level where people are like drooling and babbling incoherently, although that happens on Donald Trump could be said to be guilty of that. But what is going on? And obviously it's not just the United States. It's all over the world. We're losing control of ourselves, of our own individual selves. And that, to me, I'm sorry to expand this into a more universal thing. I apologize, Darryl. I know you were looking for more specific stuff, but I mean, how we deal with that, I don't know. What the cause of it is, what the solution is. Maybe we've lost control because of computers, because of the entire world of online world and AI coming in. Maybe we've lost control because for environmental reasons. We can't understand it. Whatever it is, we've lost control of ourselves for the most part. Not everybody, and maybe not most people, but enough people to create chaos in the world. I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry if it doesn't answer what you.
Well, I'll let Darryl respond in a minute, but again, I just to what you're again. I don't think support for Kamala Harris is, well, it's slightly less irrational, I'll say, than support for Trump, but I don't see it as being all that rational either, because I don't see much sign, again, based on, well, both what she said she would do if she's president and but also, the people she surrounds herself with, and also, of course, the policies she's gone along with in the being part of the Biden administration. Again, I don't see voting for her as any, again, I would say, slightly more rational, but I see it as irrational as well. Again, that it's about, it's about, partly it's about identity politics, voting for either a woman, particularly again, a woman of color, a Black woman, that's an emotional reason lots of Democrats and, particular groups vote for her. Again, because I don't see her doing much to improve the lives of Americans when she's again. She'll be less. I agree. She'll be less worse than Donald Trump as president, certainly. But again, my argument for a rational vote would be to vote for personally, I think Jill Stein, but also, if you want to vote for Cornel West, I would say that's a rational vote. So again, I would extend the irrationality argument again, as I said, to Democratic voters. Again, in a different, less irrational, because again, she won't be as bad as Trump, but I think she will be a bad president. In fact, again, I think she'll be somewhat. I just, if you look at her voting record as well in the Senate, but also again, I don't see her as being all that competent. Likely to be a competent president. Again, should be better than Trump, yes. But I see a little sign that she's a very good politician, which is why she got 0 delegates when she ran in 2020. But Darryl may have a different perspective. So
Yes,
Darryl,
I
can respond.
Your comment.
Yeah.
Darryl?
Come on, Darryl.
Oh, Ken, come on, man. I came to the meeting and you're beating up on me already. I'm already a poor minority.
We want you to talk.
You can take it, Darryl. Come on.
I want you to participate.
Why?
Oh, because we're lonely.
I'm looking at the number of participants here, and I'm the only representative of people of color.
Yeah.
Stop. Okay,
Darryl,
here we go.
No, I have to tell you something, Darryl. Inside, we're all black because there's no light there.
And by the way, in 1939, I believe Ken would have been people of color because Jews weren't considered white. So.
That's right.
And prior to that,
so we're really sad that you're willing to that you traded that your status as human beings for settler colonialism. However,
I've traded,
and actually it goes back before that, Mike. It goes back to the 20s when you made the deal with the English.
Oh, he means Israelis, Mike, I think.
Hundreds, thousands of years.
No, you don't pull that, man. You ain't that dark. You got too much Europe in you, bro. Once you got to Europe, you lost your mind. And you weren't doing very well in Western Asia either, by the way, which is why I was very proud when I found out that more than likely the phenotype of the average, it was Israel then, Israeli was dark, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I believe we're all dark, and we've just been out in this. We've been hanging around in Europe for a couple of 100 years, and you know what Europe can do.
In fact, given whichever Jews stayed in what became Palestine under Muslim rule and converted probably to Islam. I mean, I know probably if you ran genetic tests, you probably would see again a lot of middle Mizrahi Jewish DNA and ancestry in the current, I would imagine. In fact, I think that's one reason. I think that it's actually you're not allowed to do like ancestry tests in Israel because they don't want to bring up those issues of what is how much DNA do actually Ashkenazi or the other Jewish Sephardic.
Alex,
how
there's
much
another,
is actually
Alex, there's another reason for that, and that is because back in the and it took much testing back in the actually going back as far as the 70s when they were claimed there was a community of Jews in South Africa who were black who were claiming to be Jewish, and they wanted to go to Israel. They wanted to be released from the African government and go to Israel.
Mike, can I ask you why you said claiming to be Jewish?
Well, that's why you have to let me finish. Ready?
I'm just asking you a question.
You'll find out in a second.
Thank you.
They were claiming to be Jewish, and there were people who were saying they didn't. It's part of the story. It's the way I'm telling the story to put a little suspense in it. Sorry, but anyway, so they did a DNA test. They did DNA tests, and the rabbinical courts in Israel found out they have some of the most direct. They are the most Jewish, if there's a such thing as being more Jewish than another. They are not only Jews, but they have a direct line to biblical Jews. Some of the most direct line, unmixed with any Khazars from Europe or any things like that. That they had a right to go to Israel. If anybody had a right, they had a right more than anybody. If there was a pecking order there. So because of that, Israel started saying, because of the fact that to bring up that point that they were using the word claim, they weren't believing them. Israel has shied away from using any racial or ethnic or something like that. They also had a problem with some people. I mean, in other words, when they were trying to get the 𝗼𝗿𝗁𝗁 out of Ethiopia, to be quite honest, back in my belief is that in biblical days, the Jews that were the ancient Jews, if you're going back 1,000, 2,000 years, would be today considered by today's standards to be at very least people of color, if not considered black. So what made Jews less black was probably intermixing. When they were in Europe, there were some rapes, who knows, Khazars and everything like that. But Jews are naturally...
the Middle Eastern, or Mizrahi Jews. That probably is the modern equivalent. People who would be closer in ancestry.
I think
they've been there.
I think those South African Jews were probably closer to what actual Jews were in, if we're going back to biblical times. So anybody who's coming out, and I get really, really irritated when somebody says, oh, I don't know though. The black Jews are not really Jews. Wrong. If anything, it's the white Jews that may not be really Jews. But whatever.
The Ashkenazi from Europe.
Well, but then again, they've been in Europe for hundreds, millennia. There might be some intermixing, but even just living in that environment and passing on certain genes. I mean, remember, you're in an oppressed. Any oppressed race is going to only certain types of genes will be passed on for those that survive. I mean, if you go back to, I mean,
I'm objecting to the word race too.
What? I'm sorry, Darryl, I didn't hear it.
I'm objecting to the word race.
Yeah.
You can say people.
Race, yeah. People. Well, there's a new introduction. That's what we were talking about with Alex. We really are just people. The whole idea, I mean, the actual, I mean, if you think of it in human terms, the fact that somebody could be prejudiced against somebody because of their color of their skin, think of how irrational that is, considering that probably no two skin colors, no two individuals have the exact same skin pigment all over. There's always going to be some difference. I mean, I've got a blotch here and there, whatever it is. We're not identical. So to say to somebody, your skin is a different color, that means something other than your skin just being slightly different. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. So we're already living in an absurd world. As long as there's racism, it's an absurd world. And now we're just the world seems to be doubling down on that absurdity. I mean, to me, it's insane. And I do believe, actually, I agree with you on one thing, Alex. The human race must evolve, but I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel on that.
Okay. Can I go? I've kept my mouth shut for quite a while.
We're all going to eventually die, Mike.
Yeah. Well,
we have to evolve to defeat climate change.
No. We all By the way, Mike,
it's not
Alex,
it's not a hoax, Ken. I'm sorry, I got to disagree with you there.
No. You can disagree, but you too will die. Everybody in this meeting will die. Everybody in this city will die. Everybody's going to die.
Humanity as a species.
Well, it depends if we get to Mars first. But the thing is,
we're not.
I know you don't want to go to Mars.
We're not going to build we're not going to terraform Mars. It's
okay.
There's zero evidence that we have.
It's illegal. I understand, right? The world's flat. You can't get to America. But 1 second. This is the enigma, okay? Just follow. There's a cohesion or recognition of humanity. Let's call it human beings, humanity, whatever word you want to give it. Or hairless apes, I think that's what Darwin called them. Somebody called them that. So it's human beings. That's all of the species on this planet. And there's some cohesion and you recognize somebody. Say, don't shoot. It's not a bear. It's a person. Or you say, oh, that girl looks nice. I don't know what she's interesting. She looks different to me, but she is a human being. And this guy's a human being. Maybe we should pull him out of the ocean and not let him drown. So there's recognition and reality of being all part of the same species. Now, there's another thing, let's say subordinate to that, which is groups of people, groups of human beings. And I want to point out a very significant group these days is what they call Swifters. They are fans of Taylor Swift. Is that her name? And there was like millions and millions of people, and they follow her. And if you watch TV, you'll see that 200,000 people go to see a band play, and they're the Deadheads. There's all kinds of groups. There's the Knights of Columbus. There's, I'm not thinking. There's people like me who can't say what they're thinking or can't think what they're saying. So, but there are thousands and thousands of groups, and some of them are nation states. And if you had a utopian, blah, 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 where everybody coordinates and we all believe in the same thing and we're all going to moderate our possessions. We're all going to, try to have a light foot on the planet and not over abuse it, not have too many kids, but have certainly enough. And we're all going to follow these universal concepts. Okay. And anybody who goes out of line, well, if you did have that, somebody's going to come along and say, I want to make a nation state where everybody listens to Taylor Swift all day, or I'm going to make a nation state where we only eat fish. I'm going to make a state where we dance all the time. I'm going to make a state where we all live in a commune and we share and we barter and there's no money. And another guy's going to say, I'm going to make a state where we can play pinochle anytime we want, because people form groups. Okay. So you can't have, it is not an ideal state to have the whole species completely identical, like lemons running along, or like, I don't know if you've ever seen it in nature where you have hundreds of thousands of animals. Even in the Serengeti, in Africa, when you see these herds, they're distinct herds. It looks like that is all the giraffes in Africa, but I'm sure it isn't. It's one group of giraffes that are running, or zebras, or water buffaloes, or birds flying in the sky. It looks like all of them, and they migrate, but I'm sure they migrate in groups, subordinate groups to their breed. And that's not, birds are a species, I guess. But then there's subordinate breeds, and within those breeds, there's going to be groups. And that's the nature of existence. So to go against that nature of existence, you might as well, let's say, kill everybody and we'll just have robots. And we'll program the robots, and that's it. We won't have any backflash. But it's a normal thing in existence. So like a lot of things in life, you have to have a balance. To a degree, there's times and reasons why we should act as for the cause of humanity. And there's times and reasons why we're going to all get together. And here's a group of people who like to do Cajun dancing. Hey, it's a wild thing and it's really enjoyable and only certain people like it and so forth. So let's all get together, get drunk and dance like Cajuns. And that's, you're going to have that. So you can't just say, I don't want it. It's no good. It's bad. What I'm pointing out is earlier in the night where you said we have to have a one world government to stop all this conflict. Nation states have no right to exist. You're going against human nature, all nature. You're going against all nature, which aggregates for survival in groups and then in species.
Yeah, community. Ken? The word is community, Ken.
Okay.
Our original hunter-gatherer was, again, communal and egalitarian as well, because nobody had, much more than other people, and people had to work together, to survive against the leopard, and
I don't think you're understanding anything I said. I don't think you're understanding anything.
I'm not agreeing with anything, but Darryl, you were saying something.
Yeah.
I was saying two things. One, Ken, did you study with Irwin Corey?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
You saw my video.
I thought I was losing you a couple of times up in there.
All right.
Just as a point, since you were talking about Swifties, are you aware that Taylor Swift adds $5 billion to the United States economy all by herself?
There you go. No, she doesn't do it all by herself. That's for sure.
No, I'm talking about
people.
I'm talking about her talent, her team, her interaction with people.
Yeah.
And at every city that she goes to, she donates to charities.
Yeah, she's a nice girl. I know.
Okay. Now that we've done that, can we get back to, can anybody point me to a history of October 7th, 2023, what actually happened in Western Asia on that day?
Western Asia
account of what happened on that day.
There's a good Al Jazeera did a good hour-long documentary that you can. That's still out.
Okay, then I'll go to Al Jazeera and look.
They interviewed a lot of people, including Israelis, and they also compiled all the different videos that are out there.
Darryl, I have to tell you something because Alex is very biased there. Everybody, and Alex claims everybody else is very biased. My recommendation would be this, because we don't have, the era of Walter Cronkite when everybody agreed that was the truth, whether it wasn't or it was or wasn't.
And it wasn't.
Right. But my suggestion is that you do an extended version of triangulated fire. Make sure you there are histories, there are documentaries, there are articles. I know this is a pain in the ass, but it's a pain in the ass for all of us now.
Well, I mean, I just listened to Kamala Harris. I just did it again. Okay, Kamala Harris state during that whatever you want to call that thing when she was with former President Trump, that there were rapes and there were beheading of the babies and
I don't think did Harris talk about beheading? I don't remember her saying that.
No, she didn't say that. She
did say
however, she did say there was a lot of sexual activity on that day.
This is why.
And what I'm saying to you is that if I'm a Hamas fighter, I ain't thinking about getting no nookie when you got a whole bunch of crazy Israelis out here. I mean, it just doesn't even make sense. But then I hear that even the New York Times questioned the story that was told. However, people are still operating on that story. So, okay, so let's say you go with the original figure that there were 1,400 rather than 1,100 Israeli assault, whatever.
Yeah, it was the agreed.
And now you're up to 40,000. You can't even put two rocks together in Gaza. You're starting to take apart the West Bank. And you see on the tape that they even play in the United States is Israeli Defense Force people doing sexual things to their prisoners. And yet they don't want the Israeli, Netanyahu, because I guess he doesn't want to go to jail, won't do the swap like they usually do. This dance is something like totally different. First of all, why were the women in the Israeli Defense Force ignored when they said that Hamas was capable of what they ended up doing? What happened at that concert? Were there really Apache helicopters keeping people from being captured for prisoner exchange? Is that what is the principle? Hannibal principle or something like that? Is that a factual thing?
Darryl, let me just interject here.
You got it all, Mike. I'm with you.
Before we get off, because we're getting into conspiracy theory areas. To gather evidence.
I'm saying, whoa, Mike.
No. I'm not saying
that I'm repeating conspiracy theory.
Well, I don't. Look, we don't. We need.
Does Haaretz count?
We need evidence. And
does Haaretz count? Does the New York Times count?
Doesn't matter. I mean, the New York
Times.
As
long as I know who I'm talking to, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, my thing is, you can do whatever you want, but my thing is, I like to see evidence, even if it means that I'm not going to won't be sure or can't make a determination or absolute conclusion on 75% of what's out there.
Mike, how did I start the conversation?
What?
How did I start the conversation?
You wanted to know what happened on October 7th. So
I said a source, something that is factual.
Right. So my suggestion is go to different sources. Don't expect any one source to have the whole story or the correct story or anything. Go to different sources. See what they all say.
Okay, what do you believe happened on October 7th?
from what I can gather evidence wise is
Yes.
this is what, well, okay, I'll tell you what I believe happened. And then I'll tell you what I've seen the evidence for, what the evidence leads me to believe. There was an incursion, a raid into Israel. The objective was to take hostages as negotiating tools. The objective was to take hostages. They intended to take a lot more hostages than they did. It went crazy. Okay, so I think some of the people, or the people who actually designed the operation, actually the primary purpose of the operation was to take hostages. But they went in, and people went crazy, and they started shooting up people. They started going into homes and shooting people, et cetera, et cetera. It was an operation. It was a botched operation. This is what I believe. Now, what I know from evidence is that people at a music festival, who were at a music festival, young people, which I was told, I don't consider this hard evidence, was kind of a peace-oriented music festival. But I don't know if that was put out in the advertisements or anything like that. That they were there, at that music festival, they got involved, the raid came in there, and people were just being shot left and right. But some were being taken hostage. So obviously, to me, at least, it seems that some people were doing what I guess they were supposed to do and take hostages, and others were just going wild. Then you had people going into homes on top of that and killing people in the homes, men, women, and children. And you had other people going in and pulling out hostages. For the most part, it was killing. But some people, from what I can tell, what I've seen, mostly it was killing, but some people were taking the hostage. Sometimes they were taking hostages that other people, other Hamas people were trying to kill or had wounded or whatever. But that they took these people hostages, but they came in, they burned homes. It was not directed at the military. It was directed at civilians. And the reason it was directed at civilians is that civilian hostages are more of a negotiating tool than non-civilian, than military hostages, in most people's minds. I don't know if that's how the Netanyahu government thinks. And I'm no fan of the Netanyahu government. But so they went in, they did this. There is in other words, there is the video, the raw video that came out. I've seen some of it. There are other people I know who saw as much as they could get access of it. And it was, in my opinion, in my evaluation, horrendous. But whether or not, I don't know yet, whether or not that was the original intention of the operation, just kill people, or whether it just got out of control. We do know that these were Hamas operatives, and a large, probably from what I can tell, most of them were geared towards, most of them did the killing, that they were involved in killing, just shooting people. I have seen no evidence of Israeli helicopters shooting at Israelis. There is evidence, and I haven't actually seen any evidence of Israeli helicopters. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. There is evidence of Israeli security forces coming in and shooting, but they were aiming for what they would characterize as terrorists. They were aiming for the Hamas people. Whether some of the Israelis, it wouldn't be that many, but whether or not some of them were killed in the crossfire or by accident by IDF forces or security forces is certainly possible. But they were actually going in to hit the Hamas operatives. The Hamas operatives do not wear uniform. They are not uniformed soldiers. It is a guerrilla force. It is not a uniformed force as we are used to as an army. So could there have been mistakes made? Possible. I have not seen, but one thing I have not seen, any evidence of Israeli forces, any type of Israeli forces, be they IDF, police, any type of security forces, actually trying to kill Israelis, aiming for Israelis. Somebody would have to show me hard evidence.
Okay, I can show you right now in the Times of Israel. Okay, so this is Times Israel. So again, this is this famous Hannibal Protocol or directive. So this is again, and again, this was admitted to by, well, Israeli officers subsequently, but also, some of the civilians who were, trapped in the kibbutzes, they themselves have said, we were the
wait, Alex,
were killed by here.
I don't need your summation. I need to be able to read this thing. Can you blow it up?
Here. So again, Haaretz obtained documents.
This is Haaretz?
This is Times of Israel, but Haaretz is the one who originally got the documents. Here. A military order officially repealed that granted troops broad permission to do whatever necessary to prevent the kidnapping of fellow soldiers, including potentially endangering their life.
So, that doesn't mean that they shot, killed him.
They did. They did. The article
No, wait, hold it. Go back. I have to read the rest.
Alex, let him process it the way he needs to process it. Because it's very disturbing.
Here, look at the subtitle. Haaretz alleges that Senor.
Wait. Shut up, Alex. Talk about something else while I'm reading.
Alex, what's up with this Russian thing? With the Ukrainians being in Russia this long, what's with that?
Well, they're losing ground now.
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the optics. What's the point?
The point is, again, from what Zelensky has said, he was hoping to get he was hoping to get this authorization for to attack deeper into Russia. With all of this.
I can't. I'm done with it.
Mike here. But Mike,
just keep talking. Just move it up. Yeah. Okay. Stop. No. Back. Okay. Stop. Thank you. Keep on going, Alex. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So that's what they thought, that this would be good PR, essentially. That it would, it would.
Is that the place where the Germans?
They thought it would convince Europe and the U.S. to give them more money, more weapons, and again, most importantly, authorize them to attack Moscow, essentially.
No.
So even though Putin again subsequently made quite clear again that would be basically
But
considered.
why are they there? I'm trying to understand Russia.
Wait, why are Russians in Kursk? Because it's their territory.
No, I'm talking about why are the Ukrainians in Kursk? And is that where the Germans broke through?
Okay.
Well, they tried to break through and failed, in 43.
No, I'm just asking, because somebody said it was sensitive. But okay.
I'm sorry to keep
they attacked there. Sorry, you want me to go further, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going. Stop it. Okay, no, back. Stop at the bottom of the picture. Okay, a little further. Okay, stop. Thank you. Keep going. I'm sorry to keep on interrupting.
Can you send it to me? Can you send that to me, Alex?
Send this article from. Wait, I'm gonna have to. I'll put it in.
No,
the
I
chat.
mean not right away. I mean just whenever you get a chance.
I can put it in the chat so you can pick it up there.
I can't read it.
Except I don't know how to.
I don't know how to
get it out of the chat.
Okay, now you.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah. But here, let me do this for Mike. Do you want me to go further, Mike?
No. This is just. I got it. Okay. No,
Yeah,
leave it
here,
there.
this is important.
Okay, stop. Yeah, that's good. No, back a little bit. Okay, stop. No, a little forward. Okay, stop. Let me get through this part here.
Okay, so Alex, do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah,
I mean,
again,
thank you for
they
the
think
thing in the chat.
They probably also thought, oh, that because they're
No, I understand all of
they
that.
thought they could take
I
the
got the
nuclear
speech
power
that they.
plants. Oh,
But what I'm trying to understand is
they also
why
hear
is
Darryl.
Russia.
The other thing is they thought the Russians would take troops from the other
I
areas where the
understand that
Russians are
too.
advancing and move them
I
back.
ain't asking that. I'm
No, that's
asking.
part of it. That's a reason. But again,
No, I understand why the Ukrainians are doing it. I'm not trying to understand the Russians.
Why? Wait.
He
Why
just
the
doesn't
Russians
care
what?
why the Russians are allowing it.
Because well, there's a famous quote from Napoleon: "Never interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake."
Alex,
okay. It serves the Russians to suck in
right. Okay, I got
Ukrainian
you.
troops where it's much easier to kill them because they have no fortified positions in Kursk. In fact, again, the Ukrainians tried to send engineering equipment so they could dig extensive trenches, but all that got, of course, also blown up by Russian aviation and artillery and
okay, so now let's get back to Russian aviation again. Okay.
Wait, before you go to Russian aviation, move it forward a little bit.
Further, Mike?
Yeah, stop. Okay, stop. Keep on going. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to interrupt. No. I mean, keep on going, talking.
Oh, okay.
Go back. Back.
Right there.
Okay, right there. All right. I'll have to do it. Okay.
So what else did you want to ask, Darryl?
About Ukraine?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't understand why Putin is allowing them to be there. I understand what you're saying to me.
Because they're
gaining
ground faster elsewhere because of this. So it works in Russia's favor.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately,
so they're going to have the Donbass by December?
Possibly. Probably a little bit longer, but definitely next year. They're probably.
When you get a chance, forward again. Go on.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
Yeah.
How far? Wait, no. Is that good, Mike?
Okay, good. Good. Keep talking.
Do you hear anything about the F-16s? What, they got 12?
Well, they had one crasher get shot down.
One got shot down by Ukraine.
Well, according to some people, a Patriot shot it down, but actually, again, from
that's still Ukraine.
Again, as a former Air Force guy, this will you'll appreciate this. Again, I think the most of the evidence is that it was hit on the ground by the Russians. Because again, well, one thing is that the pilot was killed with it, so obviously he had to be in the plane when whatever happened to it. So either got shot down, crashed. Could be an accident, of course. But again, what looks most likely again is the Russians figured out where this one F-16 was and hit that hit that airfield and destroyed one of the 6 F-16s and more importantly its pilot. So again,
keep going. Yeah,
definitely more important is pilot.
Yeah,
they only have 6.
I mean, I don't know. I think
they
have maybe 12 or something. It's
inconsequential,
but it's not a lot. It's
totally inconsequential.
Yeah,
and it's totally.
Again, well, you've been in the Air Force. 6 planes doesn't. It could be they could be 6 F-22s, and that would that would be better.
It wouldn't matter.
They wouldn't win. 6 F-22s wouldn't win the war, right?
Not in the kind of war that you're fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you wanted something, you give them warthogs or something like that. That plane out of Sweden.
So
F-16 ain't gonna make no difference in this.
Yeah,
B-52 would have a hard time making a dent.
They're just everything is just meant to keep things, going. to prolong the war, cause the Russians to lose, more. Again, and they don't care. Well, NATO and the U.S. they don't care too much about the citizens of America. So why are they going to care about how many Ukrainians die?
I'm still trying to understand why Russia is having to do World War II or World War One battle. What is Russia getting at it?
It's they're doing it because they want to minimize their losses, and the best way to do that is to go slowly, is to be.
And
very
weren't they
methodical.
expanding the army?
They are. Putin announced that they're expanding the whole Russian military. I think it's 2.4 million, and 1.5 million soldiers. Sailors and so on. So they're continuing. They recruit more volunteers. They actually, they've been increasing the bonuses essentially they give.
Georgia and Moldova.
They have to replace their personnel losses, and they have 100, unlike Ukraine, who, according to some people, is now down to 20 million population. Plus, things are going to get interesting over the winter because now with Darryl, you ever live upstate or in say a northern location during the winter?
No, I'm talking. Well, listen, I was at what was it? I was at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base.
Okay, but
up in northern Michigan.
Because
5 guys got they were missing in the winter. They found them in the spring.
So we're given how again the energy system has just collapsed in Ukraine. You're probably
I finished the article, so if you want
okay,
to
so you don't mind if I stop. Yeah.
No, finish with your conversation. But,
Yeah. So again, but we're probably going to see millions of Ukrainians forced to leave, because some people in the harsh, especially if this winter is pretty harsh, people can out in the middle of nowhere can freeze to death.
No, really.
Without they require, they need central heating to stay alive.
Right.
And there are not enough generators to, keep 20 million, Ukrainians in their homes. So again, what we're going to see again, also, we got to think,
United States wouldn't give them?
What happens if your pipes freeze? Meaning your wastewater system.
Yeah.
So those burst.
You mean the United States wouldn't give them the gas that they need, considering that the United States produces more?
It's not about gas. It's about power. You can't replace, especially again in Eastern Europe. A lot of houses are centrally heated, and you can't possibly send enough generators or enough natural gas to individual Ukrainians. There's been serious talk that again, basically millions of Ukrainians this winter are going to have to move, and you're going to see the depopulation of Kharkov, which has 2 million people.
Right.
People are not again the whole. Think what? Well, you were Darryl. I assume you were around for you've been around for a few blackouts in the city, right? More than.
Yep.
Oh, you can definitely remember 2003 and 1977.
Yep.
If there was a sustained like an EMP kind of situation, how long do you think New York City would people
be able to operate?
Yeah. How many days would it take for you would have to evacuate the whole city?
It's a hard call.
But it would happen, right? If they couldn't bring the power back on in a week or two, there would be no way to you could not possibly bring in enough.
But we had Harry Belafonte then.
What would happen again? And we have to think again. What's happening already again is spoilage.
Nice guy, by the way. Really nice guy.
Spoilage of food in people's spoilage of. obviously it's without refrigeration, it's really hard. You know, you lose a lot of food. But also, yeah, like I said, things like, you know, the wastewater system collapsing, and then
Right.
a city, you know, with a large population again, you know, like
Be
100,000.
like Gaza in the cold.
It becomes, and you know, people are saying again, this could not just, you know, impact Ukraine, because again, hey, aren't probably some of those Ukrainians will think, hey, I should be better if I cross the border into Poland now or into Romania, and then you have
And then where's the wheat going to come from?
Europeans are going to start to think, you know, maybe we got to shut this, you know, we got to stop this war so we can, you know, send them back, because they're not going to want, you know, 5 million more Ukrainian refugees that they have to deal with. And
Totally understood.
And, you know, we already see what's happened with the existing refugee issues and the rise of like the different fascist parties. And, you know, I mean, the AFD is they could go you know, they have the chance to do what Hitler did and take over Germany, which, you know, hey, a fascist Germany, you know, well, remember what happened the last time that happened, because they're winning 30% of the vote, 32% in, I forget which German state it was. And
Do
they're
you think they'd be
biggest
willing
party.
to arm?
And this is basically a, you know, neo-fascist, if not neo-Nazi. You know, they were, this'll, Mike, you'll love this, and Ken. So you guys know the song Deutschland over alles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the politicians in the AFD was singing the song at some of his rallies, and then of course people, you know, said, oh, you know, he's you know, making Nazi slogans. So what he would do now is basically he would start the song and let the crowd basically finish it. But essentially you know, next he'll be doing the Horst Wessel. So, you know, Nazis are back in Germany.
Alex, when was Deutschland über alles written?
I think it's I think it's actually pre-20th century. I think it's late 19th century. Let me look it up.
If he were singing it, it doesn't necessarily mean he was.
But you know, the association, and and again, it's what he means it to be basically, you know, as close as you can get to.
How do we know what he means?
Well, again, that's his point.
Who's he? Who's he? Stop saying he. Stop using the pronoun. Who?
I forget the guy's name. He's again a very prominent member of the AFD. He's not their leader, but he's high up.
A right-wing leader.
Yeah,
in Germany.
Far right. I mean,
far right in East Germany.
Well, Germany, the party is popular all over Germany now.
I think it's mostly East Germany.
Well, it's more popular there. Yeah. But there are plenty of people in the western part of Germany who are, again, I think in Baden, which again is they got like 20%.
What do you think is driving that?
The issue of migration is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Also, it's the current economic difficulties that Germany is, you know, people are pissed, you know, which actually, of course, connects directly to the Ukraine war. Because the reason, you know, cost of living is so much, and why German industry has to shut down is because they no longer have the cheap Russian gas anymore.
Right.
Thanks to what we did to Nord Stream, you know, and also to the sanctions.
Right.
That's hurt Germany's economy greatly.
God bless Joe Biden.
Anything on Nord Stream?
Actually, wait, it's oh wow, okay. Mike, yeah, actually, again, the music for it is actually, it's Hayden. Yeah, I know that. 1797, but the lyrics are 1841. August Heinrich Hoffmann von Fallersleben. So it goes back to 1841. It's that old.
And we know he wasn't a Nazi.
Right, but again, it was nationalist. Again, it was about, I think originally it was essentially about actually fighting the French. It was, yeah. And actually, again, it's originally from Austria, not what became Germany.
Hey, that's fine. Let's flip back to Mike now that he did his analysis of Were the IDF killing the Jews, the Israelis?
Not intentionally. No, what it says is that there's something called the Hannibal Protocol was, from what I'm just going by what the article said, by what I read. The Hannibal Protocol said that soldiers, they were not allowed to, they should do everything to prevent soldiers from being taken hostage and taken back by the enemy. It did not say to kill them, but some commanders interpreted that as a last resort. Rather than have them taken hostages, they should be killed. But according to the government, that was not the intention. The intention was as much force as was necessary should be extended to prevent hostages from soldiers from being taken hostage into enemy territory.
Okay.
It was also done against.
Wait. I'm giving my analysis of the article. I'm not done. That's one point. That was the first part of the article. Then it went on to say that they were wondering, although there doesn't seem to be any evidence that the Hannibal Protocol was put into effect. It had been rescinded several years ago, they said, but it had been rescinded, revoked. There are theories, claims that, and in this case, unproven, that they used the Hannibal Protocol and may well have used it for civilians, but there's no evidence for it. There is evidence that in one case, an Israeli helicopter fired on a car it was a closed car in which they couldn't identify who was in it, but they were sure Hamas personnel were in it. Apparently they claimed, again, that they didn't know that there were hostages in it, that about 4 hostages might have been killed in that car, and an Israeli officer, these are the 2 most prominent examples, and an Israeli officer ordered a tank to fire on a house that had Hamas combatants in it, but it also had 14 hostages. They don't know, they only know 1 hostage that was probably killed, that seems to have been killed by shrapnel from the tank shell blast, but they don't know how many of the other hostages were killed either by Hamas, by the tank, or just in the crossfire that ensued. So, no, there is no evidence in there.
I put another
protocol. What? Well,
another article from the Australian Broadcasting Company who did who was more definitive, and
do you have it?
I put it in the chat, and they say, well, they actually quote here. Actually, wait, here I'll put it up, Mike, because again, here's the important part, because it quotes Israeli officers who they say that they did a mass Hannibal here.
Hold it, I don't need it. You don't have to put it up. I'm reading it now.
So here again, Colonel Nafarez.
Okay, hold it.
This was a mass Hannibal.
Hold it.
And actually it says that...
Wait. Don't tell me what it says. Let me read it. I'm reading it. You don't have to put it on there. I download.
But again, it shows that
wait. Don't tell me what it shows, Alex. Okay, this isn't kindergarten. I can read it myself. Don't worry about it. Keep on talking about something else.
Okay, I'll give you something else to talk about. One of the most consistent upsets about the conflict between the IDF and Hamas has been proportion. So is there an international standard, like 7.5 times? What's the number that's a reasonable?
It's a specific number, but it's a kind of thing like, it's like...
No, wait a minute. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
It's like pornography, you know it when you see it, basically. So there's no arbitrary, killing 4 people to get 1 guy is disproportionate.
Well, when I think of World War II, I think of the casualties the Russians suffered and the casualties the Germans suffered, the casualties the Americans suffered. Let's go back to Mike.
And by the way, just to interject there, don't tell me I can't go to Canada. I will.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I just read the article. Nothing that it didn't change anything. The only thing I got from that is there were a couple of more people who attested to the fact that the people I did mention, which is that among the 14 people that were being held hostage in the house where the tank fired, that maybe more than one, maybe two or three. Well, I think about three. They said they believe were the people who were there, the witnesses believe were killed by the tank fire. But as for the helicopters, no, they were told they shot up. I think it was 40 vehicles, but they were told to not allow the vehicles to get away. Basically, they weren't told to shoot at them because there might be hostages in it. There was no actual. If there was anybody interpreting what they said is there may have been some commanders, and apparently there were that were thought that the Hannibal directive was to be put into place, even though there were no specific orders about that. But also the Hannibal directive did not apply to civilians. There were a couple of people that claimed that some commanders said, yeah, it should be applied to civilians. But the Hannibal directive in itself does not say that the hostages, this I'm getting from the article, the Hannibal directive doesn't say that the hostages should be killed before they're taken. It says all attempts must be made to prevent hostages from being taken and taken away, but basically from being.
Where were the helicopters, man?
But Darryl, since
where were the helicopters?
Where were they?
Yes.
What do you mean? Well, you know something. Best thing to do. The helicopters were over the area where the breakthrough happened. Best thing to do is
they were near the kibbutzes.
Wait, Darryl. Don't take. I just gave you my analysis, but you've got the article also, right?
Yeah.
Don't take my. I mean, I just read it, and I didn't see.
I'm asking you two questions, and you're going off like.
No.
I don't even understand what.
Because if you want to know my analysis,
you're unable to answer the two questions. Don't answer them.
What are they?
One, where were the helicopters? You said the answer to that was they were near the incursion. If they're near the incursion, does that mean that they were near the music festival and the kibbutzes near where the incursion was?
I didn't get that from the article. Go on.
Okay.
Next question.
That's it?
Oh, okay. Well, that's
because
what I'm saying.
You said that they were shooting at vehicles that were, I don't know, they were trying to get back to Gaza or what?
That's what I got from reading it. Vehicles that were trying to get back to Gaza. One of the vehicles. This I got from the other article. Really, most of what was in the second article was in the first, so it was pretty much the same.
Okay, so then I'm back to my original question, and I'll find someone who will give me an answer as to where can I get an accurate portrayal of what happened on October 7th, 2023, in the context that the Israeli story doesn't make any sense in the context of what's been released by several different newspapers and other accounts. I'd like to find someone.
You have to go through the Israeli press because they've been pretty open about, obviously they're not complete because, again, Israel, since they're in the middle of this conflict, they have there's a military sense, and actually again before the conflict, there's a military censor at every single media, newspaper, TV show, any kind of media outlet that is allowed to basically say you can't print that. So, and obviously if there are things that make the Israeli army look bad, that's one of the reasons they will. And so obviously they haven't, some stuff about what happened on October 7th that they're, holding closely. And we would have to wait for some kind of inquiry. like
Darryl, I have to
okay,
ask you something. Enough, Alex. Your interpretation of it is not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Darryl. Is not what he's looking for. What he's looking for is to find out where he can find out exactly what happened. My suggestion is that if I were doing this as research, as I would for when I'm writing a play or something to get the historical research, you're getting contradictory information. What you have to do is, one, find out as much as possible, go to the primary sources, which is, of course, you're not going to be going up to, they're not in archives at this point, but you get as close as possible to the primary sources. When you see something that looks like they're drawing conclusions from evidence that is not hard evidence, I'm not saying to throw that article out, but you should then go to somewhere else. The only way to find out these days is by going to multiple sources, finding out what the consistencies, what the inconsistencies are, and looking for things for which there is hard evidence. In other words, not somebody saying, oh, I thought I saw whatever, a helicopter or Hamas vehicle or whatever over in that spot, but where there is actual video evidence, actual evidence that was seen by both sides or by different sources with different biases that all agree on it. I know this sounds complex, Darryl.
No, it doesn't. It sounds like the way you do research.
Yeah.
There's nothing complex about what you just said.
Okay, good.
And I appreciate you sharing your methodology for determining fact.
These days, yeah.
Question is that I'm looking at is, okay, so how many have Hamas fighters were in the incursion, and how did they, or how many of them were able to, well, how many of them died on Israeli? I can't even say it correctly then. How many of them died outside of Gaza on their way back to Gaza? I mean, they're not even releasing like simple stuff that people could like maybe wrap their heads around, right? How many folks came across the fences and whatever? Why were the kibbutzes so exposed? What happened to the bases that were near the kibbutzes? Why did it take them so long to respond when the fences are supposed to be monitored 24? There's a whole bunch of stuff that it doesn't even make any sense. But it's there, and it happened, and those people died, and those people were captured.
You can also say, why did the Mossad inform, which had information on the tunnels going up to the border, and that there was something going on in them? Why was their information dismissed, not by the military and not by the intelligence organization, except only by the Netanyahu government and his?
Because Netanyahu doesn't want to go to jail.
Oh, right.
And maybe he thought this was a good hit.
That's my opinion too, but these are all questions. I mean, we can't get inside Netanyahu's head and everything, but we have opinions. But what fact is, man, that takes work to determine these days.